right? So have these moments and spaces of time where you are reflecting, right? Where you are really literally going through your Rolodex of what God has done for
Yeah.
you, right? And where He has brought you from. For me, for a lot of years, crying represented weakness. But then I learned that, of course, when we're weak, He's strong, right?
We people, we know one another.
Right.
But in the end, I think that makes the whole funeral experience a little bit easier. I like to think that Williamson Funeral Home is very unique in what we can offer the families that we service, because we've been such a big part of the community
Right.
for so long.
Want to be a guest on our show? We're always looking for entrepreneurs, business owners, side hustlers, and career shifters that are willing to share their life and business experiences, strategies, lessons learned, and pitfalls to avoid with our listeners. If you would like to be considered as a guest on an upcoming episode, email us at empower716@gmail.com. and include your contact information along with background information about your business, and share what value you can add to our listeners. Want to stay up to date with Empower 716? Don't forget to share. Click here in the right-hand corner of the video and follow button below so you can see the upcoming episodes live on your news feed. Find Empower 716 on LinkedIn Live, YouTube, Facebook, and other audio platforms.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Empower 716. I am your host, Rob Lowry, and this is a podcast about entrepreneurs, business owners, career shifters, and side hustlers, those who are committed to growing their lives and business in Western New York. And so if you are new to this podcast, I'm telling you, you want to go back to some of the entrepreneurs and business owners that we had the pleasure to interview, talking about their journey, also giving some great gems of advice and so forth to help not only their business, but our community. And so I'm always excited about bringing new entrepreneurs and business owners in the West New York, especially people of color. I don't apologize for that, because we got to share our narrative and make sure we know that there are a diverse group of business owners and entrepreneurs out there just doing great things in our community. And so this is what Empower 716 is all about. And so today we're going to actually jump into a topic about mindset. I believe mindset is so important. It's just like, it's the foundation, and how we look at things and our perspective is so important. And so I have the honor to have today Carlette Bradley in the building. How are you?
I'm doing well, actually. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing good. I mean, considering all things, God woke me up this morning. I don't want to go to the, you know, the way they say it, you know, woke me up in my right mind, started me on my way. But it's, you know, I used to, you know, back in the day, you would hear these things in church, and like, till you go through some things, you realize, and you put some meaning behind when you go through some things in your life and realize that some people did not wake up. And just being in your right mind means something, because you realize where your mind could be. And so,
remember where it was.
because those dark moments, you like, oh, I ain't think I can think like this. And so you begin to appreciate just being in the right mind, because there's so much things that could just, you know, I'm like one step.
No, absolutely. We're all one thought away.
Yeah. And so God keep me in my right mind. So when I say that now, it has so much meaning.
Absolutely. I agree.
So I'm sorry to be on that, you know, go off with, you know, the topic a little bit, but so I'm just happy to have you here. We're going to talk about mindset, because you talk a lot about mindset, and I think I said it in a few episodes about purchasing your book, The Masterpiece Mindset. the 31-day devotional. And I want to really just say I got halfway through it. And I really loved it. And I'm not just saying that because you're in front of me. Because I'll probably be like, good book. And just pretend like I read it. Read the back and get the little summary. But I really got some things, and we're going to talk about some things that resonated with me as I was going through that. So I got halfway. So I think I got to day 14. One of the things I'm having God work with me on is just writing things out more, because even though I tell people this through coaching and everything and how journaling really works, I would start, like I used to have this gratitude book, and I would write it probably for 5 days, and then life hits you.
Yeah.
And so, but I do think that it's very helpful to write your thoughts out, write what you're feeling, and you talk about that a lot too. But I just want to talk about, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. Who am I? Wow, I haven't asked that question in a while. So I'm going to challenge myself like I challenge my clients. So who am I? I'm going to use 2 words that don't include my name. So who am I? I am a passionate leader. And born and raised in Buffalo, New York. I am the youngest of 4 girls and daughter of 2 young ladies, De'Ara and Yvonne. And I am, a Jesus lover. I love the Lord.
Yes.
And I love people. I'm called to his people, certainly, particularly to women, to empower and to lift them up. And I'm just grateful for what he's doing in my life. And I try to embed my own experiences just to help people know that you can overcome, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just who I am at the core, just helping people, pulling them out, pulling them up from being stuck, and helping people just to know that they too, can overcome. So I think that's narrows it down.
I love it. Said it so well. Like, I got this. I know who I am.
I didn't used to. Talking about mindset. I didn't used to.
Yeah. So I want to know, like, I'm curious to know, how does one get to that point in their life? Because it's one thing to, like, start knowing who you are. Like, we go on our journey and we start discovering who we truly are. And then there's another step to say, now I want to help empower other people. How did you, where did you figure out where that was?
Yeah, so I think my journey started really in 2009. 2009, July 4th weekend. I was in a terrible car accident, a couple of weeks before that. And that particular weekend, though, I just really had a come to Jesus meeting. Like I just really got tired of being tired of the way that my thoughts were consuming me, right? The way that I was making poor choices and bad decisions. And I just, that weekend was a weekend that I really rededicated my life to the Lord. And I went on this journey of establishing a relationship with him.
Wow.
Before that, I was just doing church.
Yep. We all know
and that started my journey of really being changed, being transformed by the renewing of my mind, because of the car accident, I had 6 months to sit at home. It was just me and the Lord.
Yeah.
And so in that time, I developed my prayer life, and I studied that word, and I talked to the Lord like all day, every day. And it was within that time frame that my life shifted, and I've never been the same.
Wow.
I've never looked back. And so as far as me helping others, I think I realized that just was what I was doing anyway. So around 2013 or so, I realized that I do this because people naturally call upon me. They naturally just want to share their stories, all their business with me, strangers. So, and that's when my career shifted too. So I decided to go into HR because I was passionate about helping others. And so that's sort of when it all started, 2009 to 2013.
I want to talk about the masterpiece mindset and what got you to the place to write this book.
Experiencing probably the greatest loss I can remember in many, many years in 2020. My husband passed away suddenly to a heart attack. And
sorry to hear that.
That was my best friend. We liked each other, and I say that on purpose.
Yeah.
Love is the easy part, but
exactly.
we liked each other. Okay. And he went to work, that morning and didn't come home, And so as I had to begin my grief process, there were some early grief stages that really created some fear in me, if I'm being honest, right?
Yeah.
I was feeling like the grief was going to take me out. Like it was going to kill me. I wasn't going to be able to take it. And the more I began to talk to the Lord about my feelings, because, people need to know we can talk to him about our feelings.
Absolutely.
He wants to hear it.
Yes.
Right? Even if it's anger.
Yep.
So even me telling him how mad I was that he took my husband, that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? And so as I continue in those stages and going through those stages, I'm a journaler anyway, right? And so that's just who I've been for many, many years. And as I was journaling my feelings, the Lord really placed it upon my heart that this journal about my grief was to help other people.
Wow.
And so I began to create a separate journal book for, my grief experiences and how I was feeling and the emotions and the process and all of those things. And out of it was born the Masterpiece Mindset, the 31-day devotional.
Wow. I love it. So it's definitely helped me. And I want to just talk about a few things that resonated with me. I want you to touch upon the God moment and what that means to you.
Yeah, God moments are what I call really those moments that it just has to be him. Like, you can't make this stuff up.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? I had one today, actually, before I got here.
Yeah.
So it's these things where you just it was him. It's him using people or whatever just to speak to your heart.
Yeah.
Because he heard your prayer.
Yes.
Right. And so then when you get that revelation that, wait a minute, I just prayed about this, or I just, you know what I'm saying? Or it was on my heart, I didn't even utter it. You met the need anyway. Yeah. And so those are the God moments that are so precious, and we just have to be more aware of them because they happen all the time. Don't forget to remember.
Yeah.
Right? So have these moments and spaces of time where you are reflecting, right? Where you are really literally going through your Rolodex of what God has done for you, right? And where he has brought you from. And like I said, it's the same God, right? And I think we get caught up in the motion of life.
Yep.
Things get fast paced, and we also kind of get caught up in where we are now in the moment, right? And so you may, the way that God has blessed me now to live or have a certain lifestyle, 20 years ago, that was not the case, right? Yep. It was very different, looked very different, right? Yep. And so I have to remind myself that now, right, don't forget to remember, right? Yeah. Remember, right, when I want to complain about the gas prices right now, remember when you couldn't afford gas at all. Yeah. Like, if these prices would have happened then, you'd be walking.
You'd mess it up, yeah. You'd be walking.
So don't you dare fill your tank up and complain at the same time. No, you have gratitude, right, for where he has brought you from and what he's consistently doing. And so it's so necessary because it changes your lens.
Yeah,
right.
It does.
It creates joy, right? It will shift your attitude, right? It'll even shift the way you treat other people. Sometimes when you think about what the Lord has done, you just want to be a blessing to others. You want to spread the joy, spread the love, right?
Yes.
And so, it's a game changer. Even in pain, you have to have gratitude, right? I talked about gratitude even in my grief, So I have to, when my emotions want to consume me, shift that language. Lord, thank you for the years you gave him to me.
Yeah.
Thank him for the years that you trusted him, to me.
Yes.
Thank you for all the laughs and concerts and trips and, you know what I'm saying?
The good memories that,
Yes, absolutely. All of those things that you did. And so, again, it just shifts the atmosphere. Right?
Wow.
So I think it's a great practice.
So another point I wanted to touch upon, connect your tears to healing. That stuck out to me.
Yeah. People associate tears with pain only, right? I'm crying. They're happy tears. But when you think about grief, you think about hurt, and the tears come. I was the type of person that looked at crying as a weakness, right? Because, again, a wrong mindset about being a strong Black woman, that superwoman syndrome, all that kind of stuff. So for me, for a lot of years, crying represented weakness. But then I learned that, of course, when we're weak, he's strong, right? And so as I connect my tears to healing, it's just like I'm pouring out. Like there's something coming out of me. The pain is coming out. And there's a scripture that says he collects our tears, right? And so think about that. All of the tears, right? You can't fill anything up. You can just pour it out.
Wow.
Because as you are pouring it out, he's healing you, right? There is God don't waste anything.
Absolutely not.
So he's not going to waste not one tear. That tear is watering the garden for your healing, right? And so the more that you pour it out, it's just the more that you allow that garden to grow. And so, and that's a perspective change. That's a mindset change.
Absolutely.
Because people don't view tears as an opportunity to heal. So now, I cried. I might cry today.
It's all right to cry. It is. Allow my grief to delay my God. I allowed my grief to delay my God-given assignment. So I want to read this part because this is what I highlighted. It comes most often when I feel I have allowed my grief to delay my God-given assignment and responsibility. I call it the woe layering. It is tough when woe layering happens because it feels like my pit has a pit. So I want you to expand upon spun out a little bit.
Yeah, so that woe layering, it really was connecting to like the pain that I was feeling any given moment, any given day. So instead of me also releasing it to the Lord for a couple of months, I was just letting it pile, right? And it was just creating this hard shell that it was so hard to break through because even in pain, we're still called to purpose.
Yeah.
Like we don't get an excuse, right? And so it's still our responsibility to stir up our gifts, right? And to fan the flame, right, that the Lord has given us and actually to do his work and to continue to edify the kingdom. So I'm not excused from my purpose just because I'm in pain. And so that layering that I was allowing to happen, which was creating this hard shell. And I'm not excusing process, right? Everybody has their own process. Let me just say that, right? But there is a time where you have to say, okay, Lord, like, what do you want to do in this moment? Yes, I'm hurting, right? Yes, this is painful. How do I not allow this to stagnate me, to neutralize me? Like I can't continue to be still and I don't feel like I can move. And so, again, confessing your feelings, just saying what it is, right? He'll then allow you to come free, to break free out of that because you don't, I'm not dead, so he's not done with me yet.
Absolutely.
So I have to still continue to live. And so not allowing those layers to stay, because they're going to come.
Absolutely.
You can't stop them from coming. Just don't get stuck there. Just don't stay there. Yeah.
Don't stay there. Don't stay there. So to command every part of my day and stop using languages like my grief, my loss, my emotions are out of control, I'm doing that. I have partnered with the negative. And it's just about the language use that we give ourselves. I want you to expand upon that.
Yeah. I mean, we all know, right, that very famous scripture, right? The death and life and the power of the tongue. But just going a little further with understanding the power and magnitude that we have to really command our day. Let's just start there, right? Command your day. Like I refuse to get up in the morning and use language like, oh, this day is going to be too hard. This meeting is going to be exhausting, right? I don't want to deal with these people. Whatever negative language like that wants to come out because I'm human.
Yeah.
Right? So the flesh wants what it wants and it's always going to fight against the spirit. And the battlefield is in our minds and in our mouths.
Ooh.
Right.
That's the word.
And so it's about your thinking. It's about your language. And so you have to decide and make a decision every day and commit to not using language that is anti-God. Right. You got to know who you are.
Yeah.
That means that you know who he is. And so if you know who he is, then you know who you are.
Yes.
And when you know that, then you can choose the right language for whatever situation. It could be something simple. Right? Like I used the example of the gas earlier, the gas prices. Use God's language. What is God saying about that? He's our shepherd, and so I lack nothing. I don't care what the prices are. I won't lack. I'm an heir.
Nothing, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You got to know who you are. Know what the word said. What is God saying about it? You know? And so that language is so very, very important. And so I had to stop saying it because it was phrases like, oh, this is just too much. You know,
and that resonates with you because, like you said, that word just sticks in you, and then you become that.
You become that.
Yeah.
So right, you almost build life around it. Right, you planting seeds.
Yeah.
Right, and so then it takes longer to come out of it because now eventually you're gonna have to go to the Lord and say, Lord, I'm sorry. Right, I planted this seed, and I need you to dig this root up.
Yeah.
Burn it or remove it, right? Because it's growing, right? And it gets these, these branches, and now it's like you can't get out of it. And so it's important for us to choose because it really dictates who we are and the way we move.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to switch to just some of our current things that we talk a little bit about the grief, and I want to go to the most recent incident that we had here in the Buffalo, New York, with the mass shooting. And so this is our first time of just acknowledging this on the show. And you can see on the screen. And 10 people lost their lives on May 14th. And 3 other people were wounded. And not only the families of these individuals are grieving, community, the country is grieving, being perpetrated by evilness,
Right.
just hate. And you talk a lot about, the experience of losing your husband, your friend, person that you look forward to seeing every single day.
Right.
I want to get your input of just how, in your perspective, of how do we as a community handle the grief that we're experiencing right now? And then kind of related to your own personal journey as well. How do we go through this, and and how do we just process some of this?
Yeah. First of all, just let me say, I'm praying for the families and my sincere condolences, right, to the families and friends and everyone that's been impacted. It's such a tragedy in our community, and we're never going to forget. But everybody's process is different. Let me first start there.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's grief process is different. And you don't have to go through it alone, is what I would definitely say first. Yeah. And seek help.
Absolutely.
Don't get drowned in the stigma, right, of, being strong. We a strong community, Buffalo strong, we Black strong, that language, right? Don't get caught up in that. It's okay to be weak. It's okay to be in pain. It's okay to hurt. I think it's necessary that everyone assess how they're feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Check your own emotions. I know that's what I'm doing every day. And know what your assignment is. Everything is not our assignment. You may not be in a position mentally or emotionally where you can go out and help or do. And I know we all want to, because I do too.
Yeah.
Right? But know your assignment. And that goes back to really just your relationship with the Lord. Seek the Lord for, how can I help, Lord? What can I do?
Yeah.
How can I process this? And just take one day at a time. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Give grace. Right? We're going to be really, really feeling this pain for a long time, right? Yeah. But what I know about grief is that God is a healer.
Absolutely.
And really, at the end of the day, that's really my only answer. God is a healer. And that's going to mean something different to everybody.
Yeah.
Right? But your relationship with him is so very important. And he still sits on the throne, and he's still in charge.
Yes, he is.
Right? And he's able, even this, because I know there's some people that are feeling like they're never going to heal from this. They'll never be able to move forward. Feeling like our community will never get over this hump, or we'll have this label on us forever. That's not true. God is able, right?
Yes, he is.
His love, right? His love and the way that he is concerned for us. He said he'd perfect those things which concern us, right? And so whatever space you're in, whatever level of grief that you are having, I just, recommend that you get help. Know that you don't have to do it by yourself, and that you really focus on your relationship with the Lord and let him reveal to you how to process it.
Yeah.
Just trust that God's way is the truth, right? Because, and that goes back to like thinking about what he's already done. Like, has he failed you yet? Right? Have you failed yet going his direction? No. Right? And so he does provide, he gives answer through people, right? Godly counsel he gives, which is why we got to be in the word too.
Yeah.
So to purchase the Masterpiece Mindset 31-day devotional, you can do that at my website, which is www.themasterpieceproject.info. And that is available, for right-away shipping. It's also on Amazon, so you can search for the Masterpiece Mindset on Amazon as well. The services that I offer at the Masterpiece Project, which is my consulting firm, is one-on-one coaching. It is leadership development, executive coaching as well. I also offer workshop facilitation, capacity building for organizations, and I am just passionate about helping people grow spiritually. And so spiritual mentoring is also a service that I offer, and that service is for free. You can also sign up for any of those services at that same website as well. So, the Masterpiece Project was really birthed out of me discovering my identity, right? And so I just want to speak to anybody that may be watching this, that you feel like, you're struggling internally, that you are in a dry place spiritually, to really develop your relationship with the Lord and to allow him to peel back the layers of who you are so that he can show you just who he has created you to be. Ephesians 2:10 says that we are his masterpiece. Created for good works that he designed for us a long time ago. And so there's work for you to do. There's purpose assigned to your name. God is a master orchestrator, right? He's an extraordinary strategist. There is nothing that he leaves to chance. And because he's a God of guarantee, I want to encourage you to trust him with the impossible, to trust him with everything that you have, because he's never going to let you down. He doesn't lie. He doesn't have to repent. He's not going to turn his back on you. And I don't care how difficult it may get in life, you can always depend on him. And he wants you to know that even through life's struggles and challenges, that he's saying to you, son, he's saying to you, daughter, that you are his masterpiece.
I may be in a moment of feeling down, depressed, going through, I may have lost someone in my life that I really felt close to, but God got me through it.
Yes.
And so someone who can be going through a similar situation can hear and say, you know what, if she can do it,
Come on.
I can do
I
it.
can do it. If he did it for her.
Yeah, he can do it for me. And that's why I said this is so important. So I appreciate that you sharing what God has given you. And I don't mean that just by words, just by to say it, because I believe somebody will be blessed by this, by your transparency, by the piece, especially about being authentic with God. Because I think that is, like I said, that was something that I gravitated to and still do, because I think that is the relationship that you have with God is so key.
That's so key. Yeah.
And when it's real, ain't nothing about like a real relationship. None of us like to
You
fake.
can be yourself, Right. Put it all out there. He made you anyway.
I already know you a little messy, Rob. You might as well just tell me about it. You got a little ego in there too, so why don't you just
admit it? Yeah.
So I appreciate you for coming on the show and sharing your journey.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It's been a blast.
Yes.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to jump right into our this topic today. It is the legacy of starting a funeral business. What other person that I think would be great for this topic is we have a guest here today that I'm very honored to have in the building or room. Goes by the name of Michael Williamson from Williamson Funeral Home right in Niagara Falls, New York. Who is Michael Williamson?
Who am I? Well, I'm born and raised in Niagara Falls, New York, and I'm always proud to say that. My parents raised us in the town of Niagara. I went to Niagara Wheatfield High School, attended Syracuse University, where I was a biology major, whereas when I first really got interested in the sciences, I'm a sports fanatic,
Right.
and I'm an advocate just for Western New York, Niagara Falls especially. I believe that there's a lot of good that comes out of Niagara Falls and just many times doesn't get publicized. My favorite sport, well, in high school is quite different because I was a All-American swimmer.
Okay.
And as an African-American male, many times I found myself the only
Be the only one, yeah.
in the arena. But yeah, I was a swimmer and a springboard diver.
Wow.
So that's what I enjoyed in high school through college. But right now, I enjoy all sports. I like to travel to see. My favorite teams are New York Knicks, LA Dodgers. So I like to travel to different ballparks,
Nice.
different stadiums, just to enjoy the festivities of professional and college sports. Coming up high school and college, you don't hear many young people aspire to work with the dead.
Yeah.
They want to be firemen, policemen, lawyers, doctors, but not too much about the funeral business. But I come from a family legacy of funeral business. My grandfather, my father, and now myself. So we've been in business in Niagara Falls for over 60 years.
Wow.
Which I think the longevity of our business is more than any business I can think of right now in Niagara Falls. But the way that Williamson Funeral Home first got established it's kind of a very unique story because my father in the late 30s, he was just a young man, 14 or 15. He lost an uncle that died, and at that time there was only one funeral home in the area that would service black families. And when they went to the funeral home and knocked on the door, and the lady came to the door and, "What do you want?"
Right.
And he heard his uncle say, "Well, my brother died. Do you have any money?" And my father's uncle said, "No, we don't have money right now, but we'd like to, find out. Come back when you have money." And that struck my father as a young man. And being turned away, my dad thought to himself, if I could ever start my own funeral business, I'd like to serve, the black community and serve them at a high level so they wouldn't have to experience what he had just experienced.
Right.
So, although my dad graduated from mortuary school, the same school that I attended in Syracuse, he graduated in 1945. It took him 15 years of scrubbing floors and cleaning rooms to save up enough money, whereas in March of 1960, he opened up his funeral home on 10th Street in Niagara Falls, which was right across the street from the Nabisco shredded wheat plant. So now, since this 1977, we've been located at 635 Main Street in Niagara Falls, where we continue to operate at a high level, serving the community.
that weight or that expectation as far as that legacy, how's that hold with you?
Well, that's very interesting because I have 6 brothers and sisters, of none of which are in the funeral business.
Yeah.
So, my father never tried to persuade us really in which way to go. And for me, it was just like a natural thing. I mean, I didn't love school, so after undergraduate school at Syracuse, I couldn't see myself going on more. So I ended up going to mortuary school and working an apprenticeship and taking a New York State board exam and becoming licensed funeral director, of which at the time I was probably one of the youngest fully licensed funeral directors in the state, because I obtained my license, I was probably only 22 years old.
Wow.
When I received my mortuary license. Grief and bereavement is not it's not an everyday emotion.
Right.
So when grief and bereavement comes about, you have to understand what, if I could use the term, what your client is going through.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times your client, the first thing they're going through is anger.
Right.
And a lot of times that anger is focused at you, and you have to be cognizant enough to know that you don't take it personally.
Right.
That sometimes it takes a few minutes to overcome that before you can ever get to the business component of it. And that's what I really like about my business. Being in Niagara Falls my whole life,
mm-hmm.
I know pretty much my clientele very well, or
right.
they've known me my whole life, something
right.
like that. So that gives us a starting point that you just wouldn't have with a stranger.
Right.
The funeral business and doing funeral arrangements with families, it's a very intimate arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to make it as most comfortable as I can for people. And the familiarity that you have with people tends to break the ice to the point where you can get to the business part of what you have to do. Most people who are making funeral arrangements now they're in their 30s or in their 40s, and they don't hold to a lot of the traditions that we have in the past. A lot of people, the funeral business in the past wasn't something that people just shopped for price. Nowadays, people literally shop for funeral service by price and not so much by tradition.
Wow.
So, nowadays we have to be both. We still have to be traditional and use the familiarity what we have with people, but we also have to be cost competitive now with people, because people are, and as they should be, people are very cost conscious even in the funeral business. One of the most difficult challenges that I face is especially at my age now, I deal with a lot of people that I've known for a long time.
Yeah.
People I've played baseball with, people I've gone to the YMCA with, people I go to church with, and like I say, people that I've known my entire life. And even being in the business for 40 years, as I have, it's something you never get used to. And actually, Robert, I think if you ever get used to what I do, that might be a sign that it's time for you to move on.
Yeah.
Because, you never want to become callous in this business to the point where, I can't feel what you're feeling on the other side of the table. We can't all be crying.
Right.
Somebody has to be, taking care of the business. You have to separate those personal feelings so that you can take care of the business for your client. We know one another.
Right.
But in the end, I think that makes the whole funeral experience a little bit easier. I like to think that Williamson Funeral Home is very unique in what we can offer the families that we service, because we've been such a big part of the community for so long. There's 3 options you can do when somebody dies. One, if you will, the most simplest option is what we call direct cremation. Someone passes, they're removed from where they died, there's a cremation and a memorial service. no viewing of the body, direct cremation. Then there's cremation with viewing, more traditional. You have a visitation, you have a funeral service, and then you have cremation. And then there's the traditional, what we call a traditional funeral, where there's a viewing, a funeral, and an in-ground burial. But again, with people being so cost conscious today, people do many variations of those three options.
Gotcha.
A lot of times, some people, they may do a direct cremation with no viewing, but then they opt to bury the ashes. So they're actually reaping the economic benefit of a direct cremation, but they're still meeting maybe their traditional aspect by burying the remains. Funeral costs, you see it on TV all the time, which really some of these insurance commercials are really an advocate for the funeral home because they let people know, traditional funerals cost $9,000-$10,000.
Right.
Some people still are in the mindset that they can do a funeral for $5,000-$6,000. Well, you can, but it may not be exactly, what you have in mind.
Right.
So one thing that we do, Robert, now is a lot of pre-planning. Families are doing more and more pre-planning because once a family member has gone through the experience of making a funeral arrangement, and maybe it didn't go so smooth, it lets them know, I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
So we're going to have everything all set up. And that works very well for people. In our business, we call that the greatest gift you can give to your family. If you come into a funeral home and you say, hey, Dad left this letter, this is what it is, and I say, oh, I have a copy of that letter, and then we just look it over, we carry out the wishes, and it tends to add a lot less anxiety to the whole process. Pre-planning can be done in two ways. There's one which is just a simple pre-plan, where you make all your arrangements at the funeral home of your choice. The funeral director puts together a file for you, and it gets tucked away. The second option with the pre-plan is you can actually prepay. Now, the traditional benefit of prepaying is that your burial funds go into an interest-bearing account, which not so much now with interest rates being so low, but the interest rates that you would draw on the money you put in usually kept up with the cost of living increases. So you could prepay for a funeral in 1999 and not use it until 2020. Now, that prices from 1990 have really escalated.
Right.
So when you have a prepaid funeral bill, many times that the interest that coincides with that account, it keeps up.
Right.
Traditionally, it had kept up, but if now, you go to the bank, they're offering you 1% interest. So, you cost of living is more than 1% these days. But, even in the 80s, interest rates were 7% and 8%. So just on a $6,000 funeral at 8%, that's almost $500 a year. So every 2 years, you're adding $1,000 to your burial account, and that worked out very well for people. But it still works out very well for people because, like I said, we consider that to be the greatest gift to your family members that you leave behind, that they don't have to go through this process. I know most funeral homes, much like Williamson Funeral Home, we're always open. We have open disclosure as to what we do, how we do it, and what's required of you when you find yourself in need of funeral homes. Because when you come to your time of need, there's no real time to say, well, let me go home and think about this. Let me think about what we're going to do. You're at a time of need. You need to do something. We encourage people to, give us a call. Find out what's on your mind. Takes 15, 20 minutes to come in. There's no charge. And you get good information.
Are you seeing this trend locally? Because I'm seeing different things around the country, that different styles of funerals. And what's your take on that?
You see a lot of everything now with funerals.
Yeah.
A lot of big cities, funerals are an expression of your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And as you know, some lifestyles can be very flamboyant.
Right.
And so people want their death or their funeral to be a reflection
of who
of
their lifestyle.
how they live.
Yeah.
I mean, now at Williamson Funeral Home, we don't exclude anything that we won't do, but we're traditional.
Right.
We're traditional. Our focus is on serving the family, helping them get through this difficult time. We're kind of like a no-frills funeral home.
Yeah.
We don't go so much for the sizzle as we do the steak, if you will. But yeah, you're right. People are laid out in automobiles.
Yeah.
You know, drive-through funerals are very common now, where it's like a bank. When you go to the bank teller drive-through, you know, they have the casket propped up in the gap. And, you know, people don't have time nowadays.
Right.
So they can just drive through, sign the register book,
Wow.
and keep it moving.
That's interesting. I never heard of it. Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the challenges that you experienced in this business going through the pandemic.
Yeah, I would say that undoubtedly since March of 2020, the funeral business, you didn't hear much about funeral directors as far as being on the front line.
Yeah.
But not only were we on the front line, I mean, we were right in the foxhole because not only were we dealing with a lot of clients that died from COVID, but we're dealing with the families and a lot of the family members that were affected by COVID also. So we were right in the midst of it. It was very, very difficult because many people who died during that time in medical facilities, nursing facilities, the facility was not allowing visitation of loved ones.
Yeah.
So we serviced families who hadn't seen their mother in a year, and then their mother died. Then you come to the funeral home, and you can't have a traditional funeral because there's no churches that were open that were going to receive people. Funeral homes were having, the term walkthrough became kind of replaced the visitation because, you know, we did allow people to come through, but you had to keep it moving.
Yeah.
You know, you come by, extend your condolences, but then, you know, it was a revolving door of people. And funeral services were very intimate, which mostly included just immediate family, not aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, sometimes not even grandparents, depending on the size of the family. So it was the most difficult time dealing with families during the pandemic. We found ourselves doing business virtually, doing business over a camera, doing funerals virtually. Making funeral arrangements over the telephone, which is very contrary to our whole business because our business is based on personal service,
Right.
and making that personal contact. But, you know, we were able to maneuver through it. And as you said, even though we're not out of the pandemic, the death rate due to the pandemic has dropped dramatically.
Yeah.
And now with the onset of vaccinations and so forth, even people who find themselves infected with the virus, they're certainly not dying.
Right.
Many of them are just having mild symptoms and recovering in 3 to 5 days, as you would with a cold, and sometimes just with the minor flu. But this pandemic, it did take a toll on a lot of funeral homes because a lot of funeral homes simply just weren't prepared for the change.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have any dress rehearsals. So you just found yourself in the midst of saying, is this what we do now?
Yeah.
It almost seemed that a lot of people that died during the pandemic, they were almost forgotten. A lot of people didn't even have funeral services.
Yeah.
They didn't even have a funeral service. But we're still here. And thank God that we're still able to do what we do.
We talked about like the statistics of people actually jumping into this business. How do you encourage, and I guess, you know, those who may have an interest in this business to either get involved? You talked about going through apprenticeship, and how do you encourage getting like the overall goal of the business and the benefits of being a funeral director and having a funeral business?
You know, that's a great question, Robert, because I was just saying there's just not a push of young people that you hear say want to go into the funeral business.
Yeah.
When I came up in the 80s and 90s, there was that push, especially in the Buffalo area. I mean, if you look at all of the black funeral firms in the Buffalo area, all of the gentlemen who are running those firms now, they all got their licenses in the late 80s or during the 90s. I'm actually happy to say that many of them worked under Williamson. You know, we're a great fraternity of professionals. We're not in competition with one another because, again, with funerals being tradition, you usually go where you feel comfortable.
Right.
You know, so we're not in competition with one another. And but nowadays, I just take my business, for example. You would never go 10 years without having an apprentice.
Right.
Or somebody that's coming out of school that, you know, you have to work, in New York State, you have to work a 12-month apprenticeship before you can even take the board exam to become licensed. So the process is it's not a simple process. That's probably part of the reason.
Right.
I mean, anything worth having, you have to put some work into it.
Absolutely.
So, you know, to receive a funeral license, it's a very comprehensive education because it does include the business aspect.
Right.
It includes the sciences, chemistry, biology, the microbiology, organic, inorganic chemistry, and then it involves the people portion. Psychology, child psychology, adult psychology, the psychology of doing business, the psychology of getting paid. It's really a totalitarian education going into the funeral business. But I love it.
So where, if someone wants to reach out to Williamson Funeral Home Services, where do they find you at?
Williamson Funeral Home, we're available over the internet. We're located at 635 Main Street in Niagara Falls. Cell phone number. Like I say, we're easy to find.
Yeah.
I bet there's not, if you spoke to almost anybody in a room of 10 people, somebody has my phone number in the room. I'm happy to say, Robert, I've had the same cell phone number ever since cell phones came out.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, so ever since the late 80s, I've had the same number. So
That's
so
good.
There's
That's
literally
good.
thousands of people that have my number. And I'm happy to say, you know, being Michael Williamson and my family being from Niagara Falls, there's not too many people that don't know how to reach me.
I love it. I love it.
But I always make myself available. We're available to talk, exchange information, provide information to people 7 days a week.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate you just taking the time out to really explain the legacy of your business, and I think it's really good to hear it, especially in our community, and all the great things that you are definitely a great asset to the community of Niagara Falls and Western New York overall. And so, like I said, I'm just pleasure that you can share your journey with all of us, and hopefully for those who are listening, something resonated with you, whether it doesn't have to necessarily be a funeral business, but just really just any business, but the role that it takes. And I think the key piece to talk about or to leave is a relationship. Relationship is so critical. When you value those relationships you have, I think the business, the money comes, and you don't have to beg, borrow, steal.
Exactly.
Just it comes to you. So this is wraps up another episode of Empower716. Appreciate all of you who are listening. Have a great night.